Hello and welcome to the Refugee Voices Scotland podcast, where we talk about refugees' stories and the refugee support that's available in Scotland. My name's Ken Gordon and I'm joined today by Refuweegee.
Hello. So Ken and I met at Social Bites for an event called Cup of Tea with a Refugee, organised by Social Bites and Refuweegee. And that's where we met Selina, who's the founder of Refuweegee, which is the organisation that we are going to talk about today, which is a community-based project that helps welcome refugees to Glasgow in a true Weegee style.
Refuweegee is making a big impact in Glasgow, and we were so lucky to get some time with Selina because she's a really busy lady. And we recorded this interview in the basement of Social Bite. You can just imagine what that's like. It's a basement, no lights, no room, no windows, no heat. Strange noises.
Perfect atmosphere for an interview, right?
Oh yes, definitely so. Squeaky chairs and everything.
We started by asking Selina to introduce herself because that's what all the proper news folks do.
Apparently.
Refugee. Voices.
Scotland.
I am Selina Hills and the founder of Refuweegee. Refuweegee is a community-led project that welcomes forcibly displaced people to the city of Glasgow. So in around October 2015, I caught the end of a news clip, and that was probably about the time that I'd stopped watching video news. Do you know, I'd stopped watching news about the displacement of people because I found it so upsetting, which I'm actually quite ashamed of because I actually think that sort of switching off to stuff is really, really dangerous as well. But anyway, I caught the end of a news clip by accident that was about the closure of the Hungarian border, and there was a man with a very, very small baby in a papoose. My daughter at the time was probably only about one. Yeah, she would have been a year old at that point. This baby was weeks old, maybe about 6-8 weeks. And the border control the space was filled with tear gas, there were water cannons. Behind them there's a war, and the reporters were sort of trying to do this piece to camera, and somebody grabbed the reporter's arm and turned him around, and there was this man stood with this tiny little baby in a papoose, and the baby was screaming, and he was wiping tear gas from this child's eyes, and that was the point, and I will never ever forget that news clip. That was the point that I was like, I can't sit back on this anymore. I don't want to just watch that happening and to just be a viewer of this. I want to do something. Having a young family, I'd always sort of use that excuse of, I can't just up sticks and volunteer in a refugee camp. What could I actually do? And I don't really know what it was that triggered, but at that point I was like, what about when people get here? The least that we could do is make sure that if and when people do make it to us in Glasgow, that we share that warm welcome that we're all known for. Or that we all like to think we're known for. We'll claim that pride. But I also at that point worked at the Chamber of Commerce, at Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. I played in Samba Bamba, a big band, so a good network, a really large network of sort of proactive people and some really influential people in the city. And I thought, maybe I could harness that and I could pull those people together to show that communities can actually have a huge impact when it comes to welcoming people and the displacement of people and being proactive. So that's where it came from.
Did you have a precise idea in mind when you started Refuweegee?
Yeah, quite quickly I thought I'd like to do welcome packs. Really quickly I was like, and I think just from the thought of arriving without very much, I thought it would be a really nice gesture. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most useful of items, but just to be given something from other people in that city, I just think is a real token of kindness. I think it's real heartfelt kindness. So the welcome packs idea came in, and I started to think about, okay, who do I know? So what contacts can I tap into, and what would I like to include in the welcome pack? So I was thinking about Boyd Tunic specifically at that point in time. Like, I'm pretty sure I could get Boyd to give me some caramel wafers. But then Glasgow City Marketing Bureau gave us People Make Glasgow canvas bags to put things in. Trespass have given us gloves and hats and warm clothing. And the list goes on and on of the people that donated things to put in the packs. But that it then became quite apparent then that it's not really enough. You know, that's lovely to get items and something. But the letters, the personal, heartfelt message from individuals in the city who are proud and welcoming and so happy to have new arrivals, that's the key to what Refuweegee does. And I suppose that's where the project, for me, has just had huge impact. And it's still the area that I kind of think, that's the heart and soul of the pack. That's the most important bit. The other stuff is lovely, it's nice to have, but the letters are what people come back to us as volunteers and sort of say. I still remember my letters from a guy called Ben, and he wrote about how I should go to the Kelvin Grove, and he apologised for the weather. Everybody apologises for the weather. But people remember that because it's from one person to another. And I suppose that was really important as well, that you don't have to have an item to give, you don't have to have money to give, you don't even have to spend your time volunteering or doing something. Pen on a bit of paper, welcome to our city, I'm happy you're here. And you've contributed so much more than time or money or anything else can buy.
Once you've given the packs out, do you ever follow up with the people who get them?
Yes, so the packs all have a stamped addressed envelope in them as well. So we include, but there's a funny story about that because we then did a photography project months later, and a few of the guys who'd taken part in the photography project took photos of post boxes. And I was like, why have you taken photographs of the post boxes? These are so funny to us. We don't have post boxes in Syria. We have just the office that you go to take your letters and things. And I'm like, we've been putting stamped addressed envelopes in packs, telling people to drop them in the post boxes, with so many people are probably going, no idea what they're talking about. So we've sort of changed that angle a wee bit, and we ask all our welcome packs go out through other organisations usually. So when the welcome packs go out, we ask that key worker or the supporter or the person that's giving it out to let the person know that there's an envelope in there that they're welcome to write back to us to. And we ask things like, where would you like to visit in Scotland? And is there anything in particular that you think should be included in this pack that isn't? And would you like to get to know our volunteers a bit better? And so we get lovely letters back. It's really, really nice. That is the way that we open up a conversation. And that was really important as well, because at the very beginning, at the launch of Refuweegee, there's an awful lot of media interest and quite a lot of pressure from media outlets to get in front of refugees, to meet families, to grill people and interview them. And I decided at that point that I didn't want to be perceived in that way. I didn't want people to see Refuweegee as us potentially exploiting people or trying to just collect stories. So we took the decision at that point to not request to meet people face to face, that we would always leave that up to the recipient of the pack to then latterly get in touch with us. So we either get in touch through that stamped addressed envelope, through the partner organisation, or through an event that we hold. So that's how we've met the majority of our volunteers. They've received a pack, they've then come along to an event, we've met them at that event, and now they're a year in, some of our volunteers, to helping shape the packs for the next people to arrive.
So they are your evangelists as well? Yeah,
two of the volunteers that we have are a massive support and connector into the Syrian community, in particular in Glasgow, that there is no trust like the trust of somebody else who has experienced what you have experienced. Do you know, I cannot stand and say to somebody, you should do this, it'll be really good for you. because I have no idea.
Of course.
Whereas some of our volunteers can say, I've got involved with this because people welcomed me, or because it's improved my English, or because it's something to do on the long, boring days whilst I wait for my refugee status to come into play. But that is so much more powerful coming from somebody who has a similar experience of being displaced from their home and arriving in the city. So it's lovely to have those ambassadors from the refugee community as well, and they're a really important part of the project.
How many volunteers do you have?
So our volunteer database is huge. We've now got over 200 people on our volunteer database, but in terms of how many people we have in week to week, it probably sits somewhere between about 15 and 20 people a week. During busy periods that changes. We've got a busy summer ahead, so we're going to be calling on those volunteers quite heavily for lots of different ideas.
So are there employees in Refuweegee as well as volunteers now?
There are 2 part-time members of staff and 1 full-time. I am the full-time member of staff, and then we have Hannah, who is our sort of volunteer coordinator, and Sarah, who runs all of the administration and the day-to-day. So, yeah.
So did you found it yourself, or did you have a group of volunteers at first?
Just myself. Yeah, just myself. My husband would take some credit for some elements of it.
And your sleeping children.
My sleeping children, yeah. We're still arguing about whose idea the letters was. He's convinced it's his, but I'm not so sure. All I know is that he poo-pooed the name at the very beginning. So, so yeah, I think what was it he used? I think he might have described it as being cheesy, maybe just a tad cheesy. So I love to remind him of that and to get that recorded in everything that I do.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge? Because you've done a heck of a lot in a short space of time.
Yeah, biggest challenge. I think probably coming to terms with the emotional side of Refuweegee, that we get to do so much, we focus so much on the positive response and the positive reaction. And to be honest, in Glasgow, I can still count on my 2 hands the number of negative things that I have read or seen or received. You know, we get asked about negativity all the time, and it's lovely to be able to say, we just don't have that problem, which is really, really nice, and please let that continue. But that makes it quite easy to underestimate how much of an impact people's stories actually have. For example, the other day, was that only yesterday? Yesterday we were at the airport for a family reunification, and it was amazing and it was lovely, and it's for one of our volunteers who has been separated from his family for 18 months with 2 young boys, and it was such a pleasure and a privilege to be part of that. But it's very easy to then not really process how much of an impact that actually has on you emotionally, and how draining that whole experience is. So all of yesterday afternoon I was like, I just can't get my head into a space to be productive and to get some stuff done and to finish pieces of work. And it's because your head is in the place of thinking about what that family has just gone through, what they're now about to go into, all of the little details of family dynamic, and how we think that our lives can be stressful, but it's nothing in comparison to some of the things that are happening. So I think it can be quite overwhelming at times.
Did you receive any government funding for anything you do?
We don't, no, not at the moment. We have had very positive response from local authority. So Glasgow City Council have been very supportive, lots of positive discussion. It's not, I think, because of the way that we've structured Refuweegee purposely to show what communities are capable of without having any funding. Because of that, it means we're really, really busy all the time. So you're almost then in that cycle of, how do I find time to now chase these things that we can evidence are really, really crucial, whilst also maintaining what we've started. So I hope that in time we will we will be able to divide our time a wee bit better to get some of that structure in. But yeah, as yet, no government funding.
So is it mostly donations then?
Yes, yeah, a huge amount of what we receive is donation. We've got this lovely, our social media presence and following is really strong. We're really lucky to have had such a good response from Glasgow. So we get lots of people fundraising for us, and sort of we've raised some money through merchandise as well. We try to keep everything that we do, any events that we do, free, but we have donation buckets out, and that's always worked really well for us too. It makes it accessible to everybody. I would be incredibly upset to hear that somebody was unable to come to an event because we ticketed it at £5 and they couldn't afford the ticket price. I'd much rather make it free and have somebody pay £20 and another 7 people come in for free. Do you know, it balances out. So we do bits and pieces like that. But yeah, I want to continue to try to do as much as we can in kind as well. This whole be kind, in kind is something that I think we were only able to explore because we didn't have that sort of fallback of having money in the bank to use. So the barbecue event that we did in September, just always my go-to because it was just so much fun. But we managed to do that on a real shoestring. We got the barbecues for free, we got the premises for free, we got 140 kilos of lamb for free. We volunteers, we had restaurants bringing in all the accompaniments. 600 flatbreads, I think, for free from an amazing bakery in Edinburgh. To all of these things that if we'd had a budget for that event, we would have just gone out and sorted it out. You know, you'd have spent the money because it's there. Whereas the relationships that we've built up, we now know all of the halal butchers in the city. We now have links with this amazing bakery in Edinburgh. Super Asia are our best friends because they donated all of the sort of fruit and veg and additional ingredients that we needed, even saffron. So just the opportunity to engage with the community when you're trying to do something for nothing is so much greater than just going out and spending money. So it's quite a nice way to do things.
Refugee. Voices. Scotland.
Do you have partnerships in Glasgow?
Yes, we've got so many different partnerships, yeah. So in terms of our drop-off points, our donation drop-off points, our partners there are Social Bite, so they collect donations for us. We can then collect the donations from them and take to our sort of sorting site. That then means that we don't have to have a manned office space the whole time, or a womaned office space the whole time. It means that it's accessible for people to drop off donations in their lunch breaks in the city centre. So we have Social Bite, Harvest Co-op in the south side that collect donations, and our other big partners are Oxfam. Oxfam have post boxes for letters for the locals in every store in Glasgow. We're hopefully this year going to launch that nationally, which will just be phenomenal. I love receiving letters from further afield. It's so nice. I opened a letter the other day and it was from Eyemouth, which is where I went to high school on the East Coast, and almost fell off my chair. I was like, how did that get here? So the surprise of, I wasn't expecting to see something from my home. So it's lovely when you get letters from further afield. And then their partners in terms of the organisations who work directly with the refugee community. Our welcome packs go out through 5 local authorities now, through Migrant Help, who mainly deal with the asylum seeking community in the city, the Scottish Refugee Council we work with, and I'm missing a big one. I can't remember.
Was it the Milk Cafe? Maybe?
Milk Cafe we connect in with as well. Yeah, Milk Cafe have been incredibly supportive, and we're doing some talks and conversations with them over the next couple of months as well. But yeah, so the local authority, Migrant Help, and Oxfam, Scottish Refugee Council. Social Bite, yeah. And then there's all of the organisations and the people that we go to ask for things, do you know, and social media is incredibly powerful for that, and it's lovely to sort of, this is out in the public so people can see whether or not you're giving me umbrellas for my welcome bag.
You use it really well, particularly Instagram.
So powerful, yeah. And such a lovely representation of the city as well, and whether they're letters to or from people. Yeah, I could spend all day just sitting photographing the letters, and I'm a bit of a stickler for the photograph being done right, as Hannah would tell you. So yeah, I quite often, and at the moment I have 2 huge bags of letters in my house that I'm like, I need to photograph these, because we'd quite like to make a book of them as well. A lovely capture of the city, to have this sort of coffee table book of that's Glasgow's response.
As a fundraiser?
Yeah.
Ooh.
We've been talking about this for at least 12 months now. One day that will come to the forefront.
You talked about it going national. Are things happening in other cities?
Yeah, we're pretty well connected with the Refugees Welcome national campaign, and it's really interesting to hear about what other areas are doing. It's also not always comparable, and I was speaking about this this morning, that Glasgow has the largest number of people arriving than any other city in the UK, not just in Scotland, in the UK. Cities down south do not have the volume and numbers of people arriving in their city that Glasgow does. So we've got a lot to respond to, and a lot of, to use a dry term, the integration elements of that, and the aspects of dealing with that volume of people to respond to. Whereas in other areas of Scotland in particular, where they have much smaller numbers, communities are desperate to get involved and to do something and to show that they're welcoming. But when you've only got 2 families, maybe sort of 8 or 9 people, there's not as much to do as there is in a city like Glasgow. So I don't know whether that makes us fortunate or unfortunate. I'm not yet. Depends what week you catch me on. But we have done a lot of work with other local authorities, in particular Aberdeenshire, around how to garner that community response, how to engage with the existing community and to get them to support and to help with the integration element, because it's my belief that communities are the key in successfully integrating somebody. That is not the responsibility of a local authority. A local authority should be concentrating on the things that a local authority can control, like housing, getting people onto the benefits system, supporting people to get off the benefits system and into employability potentially, healthcare and education. If you then ask that local authority to deal with community integration as well, you're overwhelming them. They are already stretched to deliver in those other areas. So why not get the community involved with the bit that they can really deliver on? So we're at the moment just pulling together feedback on the different ways that community groups work with the local authority, and Glasgow is being used as an example of a local authority and a third sector organisation working very, very well to support each other. So that's lovely to be part of that.
So what do you see as the biggest challenges in the future?
Theresa May.
We can edit that out.
No, don't edit that. Theresa May. No, I think the biggest challenge is how we continue to respond during quite challenging political climate. That I think it's very, very easy to focus on the positive elements of the project and to focus on the positive elements of people's reaction to forcibly displaced community arriving. But that would be ignoring all of the other side of it. And, you know, whether that's implications of Brexit, whether that's implications of Donald Trump, whatever it is that's impacting on it, we need to be cautious but also quick to respond to that. And I've always been a focus on the positive side of it. But I don't think that means ignoring a lot of what is happening around the world. So I suppose challenges in that are things the Dubs, the sort of abandonment of the Dubs agreement, huge challenge. Very difficult to understand when we engage with a local authority who are waving their arms frantically to say, we have room. We don't just have rooms, we have beautifully refurbished flats that we've done specifically for this reason. Send us people. And that's really hard to watch, to know locally what capacity we have, and to see how national policy, international policy, changes that and influences that. It's incredibly frustrating. But I think we have an opportunity, and I think communities have an opportunity to band together, and you can see that happening in America as well. Just last night I was watching some of the town hall meetings, and you can see how the power of community response and the community getting together and saying, no, we're not standing for that, you work for us. I think that's something we need to continue to harness, because I think that is what will challenge and change things.
So don't get blasé, don't stop watching, don't stop listening.
No, don't switch off to it. No, but don't switch off, don't get blasé, but also don't get bogged down either, because I think that the very easy thing to do, and the only reason I can say that is because I've done that as well. Oh, there is nothing I can do to help that situation. I am so small in this huge thing, there's nothing I can do. Whereas there is always something that we can do. And whether that's to sit down and pen a letter, or whether it's to write to your whether that letter's to a recently arrived person or to your MP, whoever it's to, you've then done something, and you can guarantee that that will actually lead on to something else and something else and something else. I just recently had a piece that I'd written, a blog out. I'd been asked my 9 lessons in setting up a charity.
We read it.
Did you read? Yeah. Number 1, I didn't set out to set up a charity, because if I had, I'd have been overwhelmed by that whole concept. So you don't think, oh, I know, today I am going to stop the forcible displacement of, what are we at, 65 million people? You're not going to do that. Don't set out to change the world. Set out to make one person who has made it here smile, or to just brighten up their day, or to improve their language, to give them one extra word to their vocabulary, and that will ripple. It will always ripple.
So what should people do to get involved?
Begin, make that first sort of step, take that first, whether that's writing a letter, whether it's checking the volunteer calendar, come along to an event, engage with Scottish Refugee Council. It doesn't need to be Refuweegee, it could be anybody, but go out into your local community, find out what is happening, and engage with something, because just in doing that, you will make change happen for so many different people. And I think there's real power in what we can do locally, and the global impact that actually has.
So as Selina has stressed earlier, the letters are the most important part of the welcome packs, and we ask her to read a couple of them.
This one says, "Welcome to Scotland. My name is Jo Ellen. I am 5. I live in a wee town called Eyemouth. We have a harbour with lots of fishing boats. The beach is nice too. We have a good chip shop here. You can be my new friend. I hope you like your bag I made for you." They're so lovely. So this one says, "Hello, welcome to Glasgow. It might be cold a lot of the time here, but this city is full of warm, welcoming people. We're glad you're here. Our city is better because you're in it. We hope you can call it home. With love and best wishes, Christine."
And Selina brought up the topic of what home means.
It's an interesting concept as well. We talk about the word home a lot with volunteers and stuff as well, that, this idea of a place being able to become home when you've been forced from your own, I find really interesting, because I can't imagine it ever really does. I think it's quite a strange... We're all really keen to say, "You're home now," or "Welcome home," or, "I hope this feels like home," and I'm always really hesitant. I'm like, no, I don't think that's a good... I think home will always be home.
Yes.
where you've had to leave. And I often liken it to sort of in my mobile phone, home is still my mum and dad's house where I grew up.
Like that, like how the eye mouth thing is like, oh,
Yeah, that's home.
that's home.
Yeah.
Of course.
And maybe that'll change as my kids grow older and stuff. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
There's another one as well. This one's on a Glasgow girls postcard as well, which is fabulous. It says, "Welcome to Glasgow. I hope you will find a warm welcome and grow to love our city. I don't know where you have come from, but I do know you have had to leave your home and travelled many miles to get here. I hope you find rest and peace here, that you feel safe. I imagine Glasgow will feel strange, dark and cold. Despite the weather, it is a warm, friendly city. Welcome. With love, Anita."
Refugee,
Refugee.
voices, Scotland.
So Selina's message is so important. Don't switch off to it. Don't get bogged down. Don't set out to change the world. Set out to make one person who has made it here smile.
If you want to help Refuweegee, visit their website, refuweegee.co.uk, and that's spelled refuweegee.co.uk. Get in touch with them and volunteer. Donate your time or help in any other way. And as Selina says, it doesn't have to be Refuweegee. Find your local refugee support organisation. Check out the Scottish Refugee Council on scottishrefugeecouncil.org.uk.
Above all, do one thing towards helping refugees who have settled in Scotland.
And we'll put all the links to all the things we've mentioned in this podcast on our show notes page. Thank you very much for listening to this, our very first podcast. And goodbye.
Goodbye!